Struggle with a magic ring but still want to make a plushie? What about a Pop-Tart? These are one of my best sellers at my markets, and I'm going to show you step by step how you can make one of these for yourself, a friend, or your next market. Hey, it's Tammy, Crafty Mompreneur here, and I'm excited to bring you my very first crochet tutorial. Grab your hooks, your yarn, and let's go crochet some Pop-Tarts. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute little Pop-Tart. It is one of my best sellers at my markets. I had seen a lot of Pop-Tarts out there and I couldn't really find one that I really love. So today I'm going to show you step by step in this tutorial how to make a Pop-Tart. First thing you're going to need is Bernette blanket yarn. You can use whatever yarn you like. I just prefer this Bernette blanket yarn for this particular pattern. I need two different colors, a color for the back and then a color for the frosting. I'm going to be using almond and baby pink for this wild cherry flavored Pop-Tart. You'll also need yarn for the sprinkles, and again you can use whatever yarn you like. I'm going to be using Parfait Chunky and I only need red for this project, and then also a little bit of black yarn for a smile. You'll need some polyfill to stuff it. You don't stuff it a lot, so you don't need too much stuffing. A crochet hook. I like to use a 6.5mm hook, and this is a clover. Little scissors, a darning needle, safety eyes, and these are 12mm. If you want to make your safety eyes a little more secure, this is cross stitch fabric with a little hole cut in, so I'll show you how those work in just a little bit. And you'll also need a stitch marker, and that's it. So let's get started. In this pattern we're going to be working in rows, not rounds, and we're going to start with the frosting color. Once you find the end of that mess of yarn, you're going to want to make a slip knot. While this is a beginner-friendly pattern, it is not a teach you how to crochet, so you do need to have some basic skills in crochet, such as making a slip knot and the single crochet and the increase stitch. With your slip knot on your hook, we're going to want to make a chain of 18 stitches. Throughout this tutorial, please feel free to adjust the speed settings based on your crochet speed and style. Okay, we are coming up on the end of 18 chains for this very first row. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to single crochet 17 single crochets starting in the second chain from the hook. So you'll see the first chain there, and then the second chain is there. So we're going to insert the hook into that space and do a single crochet, and then single crochet all the way down to the end, which will give you 17 single crochets, and I will meet you at the end. So we are putting in the last single crochet of that row 2, and then you're going to want to chain 1 and then turn your work. What I like to do here is I like to take out the hook and then insert it back in. I don't know if that really does much, but that's just what I do. For rows 3 through 11, you're going to just repeat the same thing of starting in the second chain from the hook, single crochet 17, chain 1, and turn your work. To keep track of what row you're on, you can either write down the numbers 3 through 11 on a piece of paper and then cross them off as you go, or use tick marks on a piece of paper to make sure you keep track of what row you're on. One of the things I will be including in a PDF version that will be available for purchase is these little row numbers that you can tick mark off of a printable pattern. The link for the printable pattern will be linked in the description box below. Okay, we are coming up on the end of this row, and as we get to the end of this row, sometimes the ends are a little bit tricky, and so it's really, you got to kind of adjust the stitches a little bit to see the two to be able to go under them. But get in that last single crochet. Again, you should have 17 single crochets, and again chain 1 and turn your work. I will meet you at the end of row 11 and we can move on to row 12. Feel free to pause this video now while you work on those remaining rows to get you to row 12. Okay, we're coming up on the end of row 11. And again, we're going to just do the chain 1 and turn. You can always count the rows that you have. It can be tricky with blanket yarn, but you should have 11 rows, and we are now on row 12. So for this final row, we are going to do 17 single crochets starting in the second chain from the hook. And one way to know that you've got the right number of rows is that when you finish this row, all of your extra strings are going to be on one side. So if you have strings on either corner, you know you don't have the right number of rows. So make sure both of your strings are at the base of the project. Once you get to the very end, you're going to want to fasten off this. And don't worry so much about jagged rows because we're going to be crocheting a back piece to them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So there we go, 12 rows. Once you fasten this off, both strings will be at the base of your project. The next thing we're going to be doing is adding the decoration details to the frosting part of the Pop-Tart, and this is going to include the eyes and the little confetti pieces. Again, I like to use 12mm eyes, so I have the fronts, the backs, and then of course the little cross-stitch fabric pieces that I'm going to show you how to use here in just a couple seconds. Eye placement on the little Pop-Tart is a personal preference, but I like to come down from the top about 1.5 to 2 inches. Once you have them in the place that you like them, then what we're going to do is we're going to secure them. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I like to keep things extra secure. So I learned about a trick where you take cross stitch fabric and you snip a little hole in the middle of it, and then you put it on the safety eye, and then you slip the tiny little backing on it. And I feel like this just keeps it a little more secure and keeps the eye from popping out easily, especially with blanket yarn. So get those 2 backings put on, and I always like to give the eyes a little tug and just make sure that I have them on just as tight as I can. Again, safety eyes are not recommended for children under 3. If you're making these for younger children, you could always embroider some eyes on there. Next thing we're gonna do is we're going to add the little confetti pieces that are on the Pop-Tart. So you're gonna grab the darning needle or the yarn needle, any color of Parfait Chunky that you want. I'm using this red color. A pretty long piece of yarn because we're going to be going in and out of. Go ahead and thread your needle. This part of the project is completely personal preference on how many little confetti pieces you want, how big you want to make them. This part is all just up to your own creativity, and simply all I do is I leave a little bit of a tail, and then I'm just going to go in and out of the piece just several times. And I like to vary the way that the little confetti piece falls so that they're not all the same. And again, just in and out a bunch of different times, a bunch of different ways. I do like to leave a space around the eyes blank so that I can add a mouth later after the piece is done. But then once you get to the end and you're happy with the way that your little confetti pieces look, I sometimes sometimes I have to pull them out. If you don't like the way one looks, you can just pull it out. And then that one was just going a little bit too much up and down for me, so I wanted it to go over it. Once you get it to where you're happy with the way it looks and you have enough confetti and you've pulled them out so that you can see them all, you're going to want to go to the back of your piece, and it's going to be a big mess. And then you're going to want to take the ends of the confetti pieces and tie them together so that they can't be pulled out. And again, just tie it in a double or triple knot, being careful not to fray the ends of that. So now the frosting piece is done, and we'll add the smile at the end, and we're going to go to the next step, which is making the backing of the Pop-Tart. Next, you're going to grab the yarn that you've chosen for the back of your Pop-Tart. For the majority of the colors that I do, I like to use the almond Burnette blanket yarn. For this part of the project, we are going to be repeating the same steps that we did for rows 1 through 12, with the only difference being that we are not going to fasten off at the end of row 12. So row 1, we're going to chain 18. Row 2, we're going to go from the second chain from the hook and single crochet a total of 17 single crochets, and then chain 1 and turn your work. Rows 3 through 11 will be the exact same, where you're going to do the 17 single crochets, and then at the end chain 1 and turn your work. Okay, this is the start of row 12, and you're going to just single crochet 17 single crochets all the way down to the end. Only this time you will not be fastening off your work when you get to the end. So here at the end, you're going to just put in your last single crochet. The next thing we're going to be doing is crocheting the two pieces together. So grab your frosting piece that we decorated earlier, and you're going to want to place this piece right sides together so that all the strings from the two pieces are lined up at the bottom. Once you got all the sides lined up, we're going to be crocheting the two pieces together by placing a single crochet along each one of the three sides. So grab your crochet hook and go ahead and put it in the corner loop, tighten up that yarn, and then insert it into one of the corner spaces. Now these corner spaces are a little bit tricky, but try and get it just into a good corner space. And then you're going to want to find the same corner space of the backing of the Pop-Tart. And what we're going to be doing here is putting in 2 single crochets into that corner piece. This is also called an increase because you're putting 2 single crochets into the same space. Now we're going to be putting in a single crochet into each one of the stitches along that first side. You want to make sure that you're going through both loops of each of the 2 pieces. To make sure things stay lined up, I like to add a stitch marker and just at the corners and just make sure it stays lined up so you don't get, your piece stretched out or anything. It just helps hold it together more. When you get to the corner, you're going to want to go ahead and put 2 increases in those corner stitches because that's going to help the PopTart lay flat. So take out that stitch marker and put in 2 single crochets into that stitch and then the next stitch after that. And again, working with the corners is a little bit tricky and you kind of just got to do your best and make sure that you get through the 2 loops. So an increase in that one, and then find your next area to go into and just keep it as close as you can to the corner. It doesn't have to be perfect, but 2 increases there, and that's going to give you a nice corner for your Pop-Tart. Now you're going to continue on and put in 11 or so single crochets, and this is kind of arbitrary because it's generally supposed to be 1 stitch per row, but sometimes it just looks a little wonky, so you got to just make it look, the way that you like it. There's really no rhyme or reason to this, but the general rule of thumb is 1 stitch per row. So again, using the stitch marker to hold the corner together. And then again, when you get to that corner, you'll want to take out that stitch marker and again put in 2 increases. So you're going to want to go in to that first area. Again, these are a little bit tricky, I'm not going to lie. And put in 2 single crochets into that stitch and then turn your work a little bit. Find the next little area that you can go into and put in another increase. And then just kind of reshape it a little bit where it gets to where that you get to how you like it. Now the next thing you're going to do is just go ahead and crochet down the opposite side of the Pop-Tart and just put in 1 single crochet, making sure that you go through the top piece as well as the bottom piece and find, match up the single crochet pieces. And then once again, when you get to the corner pieces, I like to just stuff the ends into the piece so you don't have to worry about weaving in any ends. And again, add in a increase in the first stitch, the first corner area, and in the second corner area, go ahead and do another increase. And then what I like to do is add just a couple stitches here at the bottom before we start to stuff it. Once you have a few stitches after the corner piece, go ahead and take out your hook and grab some polyfill and start stuffing your Pop-Tart. I like to put in not a lot, but I do like to stuff it into the corners a little bit, into the 3 corners. And then it doesn't require much stuffing, but again, stuff it as much or as little as you would like. It's a personal preference. When I'm market prepping, I like to kind of make them all look the same. So I have one usually next to me so I can make sure that when I'm stuffing them, they look about the same, because sometimes you put more and less and they look kind of funky. So just make sure that you have the similar amount of Pop-Tarts if you're going to be making these for a market. If you're going to be making them for a market, just make sure that they have a similar amount of stuffing. Once you have your Pop-Tart stuffed as much as you would like, make sure you leave a little extra in the end. Once you're happy with the way it looks, we're now going to close up the Pop-Tart. So grab your crochet hook and single crochet your way back across the bottom of the Pop-Tart. And these little end pieces can be a little bit tricky, but just do your best. So single crochet all the way to the end, and when you get to the end, you're going to want to put 2 single crochets into that last stitch. Once you have your last increase done, you're going to want to go into the top of the next stitch and then fasten off. And you could grab your scissors to cut the yarn, but I usually always just break the yarn. Now, because you just finished that corner, you're going to want to stuff that corner a little bit, so I always just pull my crochet hook and pull some of that stuffing into the corners of that bottom part of the Pop-Tart. To hide that in, just grab your needle, thread it, and then simply just stick the needle back through that same color and thread it into the back of. The last step is to add the smile, and we're going to do that with some black acrylic yarn. You don't need very much. Simply grab some acrylic yarn and thread your needle. And again, doing a smile is, a personal preference on how you want to do it. I'm just going to show you how I do it. I usually go in from the back of the piece, and I like to go just diagonal to the bottom of the eye, making sure that you leave a little tail on the back. And then I'm going to go back in to the same spot on the opposite eye. And then I come out just a little bit below, like diagonal, loop around the yarn and go back into the same hole, out right next to it, and then again go under the yarn, go back into the same hole, and then out the back. And what this does is it makes the smile so it's not just a sharp like V. This gives it more of a rounded look, in my opinion. But if you like the look of a V, then you can just make a basic, V smile. If you want to make a mad Pop-Tart, you can just do a straight line across. Like there's endless things that you can do with the smile. The final thing that you need to do is tie off the ends of that smile, and I just like to tie the 2 pieces together and in a double knot, tighten it a little bit tight but not too tight, and then cut off the ends and then stuff it in the back of the Pop-Tart. I hope that you loved the Pop-Tart that you created. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe because you don't want to miss my next video where I'm going to be sharing my update to where I'm at with this granny square card box. So much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.